good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are on Thrivers, and as always, we are going to have a fantastic time. We have a great speaker, a great guest lined up for today, and we can't, wait to bring her up so that we can have a great conversation with her. If you've never been on my platform, my name is Bojosi Phiri. I wear many hats, but for today, I am the founder of Thrivers. And Thrivers is a platform where we talk to women of all walks of life that we may learn from them. Women who have overcome great obstacles, women who are successful in their own fields, in their own endeavors, and we interview them that we may glean from them because, life is long and there's so many lessons to learn, so it's better to learn from other people. All right, so today we're going to talk about writing and publishing a book. And we have a guest speaker today who's done just that, and many other things, as you will get to know her when we bring her up. And there is some questions lined up that I believe that if you're writing, you're beginner writing a book, that questions that you may have, and so. Let me bring her up. Let me not waste any more time. I'm gonna bring her up, and we're gonna get this ball rolling. Hi, Lepang. Hey, Lepang. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, so first of all, thank you so much for accepting to our invitation. I know that you are super busy, that you wear many hats, and that there's so much going, that you're doing that you could be anywhere. And so thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, so I have your Lepang's biography here, and is as I expected, it's very long, and she's done so many things. She's done so many things. But what I can tell you, the short version of it, what I can tell you is that Lepang is a founder of Ferguson International, which was founded in 2009, and it's in the communications industry and has been doing that work for 16 years after she studied in Australia. She is also an executive director of the Global Education and Scholarship Summit for Africa, which we had an opportunity to be part of, which was just a wonderful initiative. And she has been part of creative teams, multimedia divisions, and corporate communications in many different places. She's worked with clients from basically all over the world. So, Lepang, thank you so much again for joining us. Please
Thank you.
welcome to Thrivers.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, I had a chance to get a copy of her
Yay!
book. She didn't know that I had it, so I
Oh
surprised
my
her with
God, it
it
was a
today.
surprise.
Yeah. And I began reading it. I mean, I read it. I began reading just 2 days ago, and I'm well into it. It's a page turner.
Yes.
And there are a couple of places that interested me. But the question that I wanted to ask you first is there a part of the book that you really feel attracted to, a part of the book that you really like? I mean, it's your book, so I'm sure you like all of
Yeah.
it. But is there a part that is really significant to you?
I think what's significant to me is how these women connect.
Yeah.
And it's in the first kind of chapters of the book.
Mm.
The women that end up really working on this movement, and it's a movement for at that time, obviously, because I was writing about an issue related to almost civil rights, I think, which most continents, I think, have experienced when there's a transition. But these women are trying to change their communities. That's really it. And I think most Black women can relate to trying to do something in your community that's going to better somebody's life, or that's going to better, whether it's young people, whether it's whether it's elders, whether it's orphans, whether it's widows. We all have that kind of experience where you're trying to give input into some kind of an issue that is confronting you in your community or country or city or whatever it is. But these women come together, they've got a common goal. They just realize that they feel stuck and they feel like nobody really has their back. Nobody understands, what their communities are trying to achieve. And they've got all this opposition, so much oppression, and they're trying to overcome that. So, the first for me, it was how they divinely connected, and for their stories to make sense to each other.
Yeah, that's really evident in the book.
Yeah.
That's really evident. And before I highlight some of the gleanings that I got from it, if you're watching this, welcome to Thrivers. Please write in the comments where you're from so we can welcome you. And if you have any questions throughout, just drop them in the comment section, and we will get Lepang to answer them.
Okay.
It is really obvious. I mean, the way, for instance, Selma and um, Fidelia have the same kind of, the way they see things, the way they
Yeah.
look at the flowers, and the way
Yes.
they see the way the flowers are
Yeah.
multi-layered. That gift, you can see it as it transcends from one person to the next,
Generation
and
to the next. It was generation after
from one
generation.
generation to
Yeah.
the other. So that's really awesome. And I had never thought about it that way. I mean, I'm not an artist in that sense, but I've never thought about, like a painting having layers, that you could see one thing, but really behind it, there is so much layered, pretty much like our lives,
Yes.
right? Pretty much like our lives. You see something, you see a person, but behind them, there's so many layers. Yeah. Okay. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add about the book before we move on? I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you
Well,
talk.
the book is just about divine connections, as I said before, but it's
Mhm.
also about understanding where we come from.
Mhm.
Because the main character, who's Selma,
Mhm.
she is trying to figure her life out.
Mhm.
So she doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know anything about her family. And I think it is this kind of disconnected generation that we kind of live in, where we live in a generation that is just disconnected from who we are and the purpose for our lives. So, her grandfather is influential in showing her, and where she's from, saying, look, um, some who you are is not just a coincidence. You're not in this family as a mistake. And I think a lot of young people tend to feel like, I'm just here, I don't even know why I'm here, I don't know why I'm in this family, I don't know why I'm, there's always a reason. And he helps her unfold this reason through understanding, what what his mother, who is her great grandmother, had achieved as a woman in a very difficult time. So he's trying to show her that you're complacent, because somebody fought for you to be here. Somebody went through so much hell for you to have this easy life. And all you need to do is kind of contribute back to and find yourself, or find where it is that you need to go, find your purpose, because there's people who have sacrificed for it. So I think that's the basis of the story. But it then goes into what her great grandmother Fidelia had actually accomplished, and what she gets to find out about this whole story as it unfolds. Yeah.
And one of the things that stood out for me as well is, um, how, for example, even in our lives, that we come to a certain point and something tragic happens, and you mourn that thing that is tragic, or you're not able to, in some of the examples, the women that, um, but that happens, when that tragic moment happens, it leads you to something that is so much greater than that just moment. For
Yes.
instance, when Jeremiah dies,
Yes.
you know,
Fidelia's
that
father.
Fidelia has to move with Mavis.
Yes.
It's traumatic for them, you know, but it is a turning point in their lives, you know.
Yes.
I was really struck by that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, anyways, let's get into writing and publishing a book. First of all, we live in a society that wants everything, like you just alluded to, that live in a generation that doesn't care about history, that doesn't
Mm.
care about where we come from, what our impact is, what our legacy will be. You know, we live in a society that wants everything instantly, like instant 2 minute video. That's it.
Yes.
No, not a whole lot of people read. So why
Mm.
write a book? Why is it important to write a book in such a time?
Yeah. Well, I think writing is a gift to people, you know. I feel that i- for all the stories that I've read or all the stories I've heard, that have left a mark on my life, I realized that someone had taken the time out to express that. Someone had taken the time out to mark that into history. And that's what writing is. It is a form of not just self-expression, it's a form of expressing either a thought, an idea about life, about people, about God, about creation, about everything. So it's really the most I think for me, one of the best forms of expression, especially when you're trying to tell a story, because you get all those words in there. I mean, there's books that I've read and then I've watched the movie, and then half the book is not there. So it makes me realize that the book actually contains the expression. The book contains the life of what the author was trying to say. And that's what makes books so amazing. They will last for as long as the earth is here. You can always access a book. I mean, you can access books from 100 years ago. Today, you know, books for me are just important in that we learn how we're all connected and how we're all related, and we've all got something to learn from each other, even if you don't feel the connection. But you're going to learn something from what you read.
Definitely, definitely,
Yeah.
and also one of the things I realize is because I like to read too. When I read books, I can feel the person who wrote their energy. You know,
Yes.
you can either, like, when I'm reading your book, I can feel the warmth in your voice.
Yes.
You know, I can
We
feel
all
your
said that to me before.
I can feel your energy in the book,
Yes.
you know, and it talks to that connectedness that you were saying. So
Yeah.
my husband here says it's written. That's right. That is
Yes,
right.
it's
I mean,
written.
it is written in the Bible. For
Yes.
instance, I was thinking of the story of when John had these angelic visitations, much like
Yes.
some of the, you know, the characters in the book, these
Yeah.
visions and visitations that he was told to write.
You write
And
them
now
down.
we're enjoying some of the most historic books in the
Yeah.
world, like the Bible, because they were written.
Yes.
That's really
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, would you say writing is a calling, or can anybody be a writer? Can anybody write something?
Yeah. I think, yeah, anyone can write because writing has so many, there's so many directions and it's so diverse. There's nobody who cannot write. I mean, as long as you've got a story, as long as you can tell your story, you can definitely write a book. Whether that book is about something you've gone through or something you've observed, I think everyone has got it in them, and it is such an important way to leave evidence behind of a certain place and time, especially when you're writing things that are more biographical, or you're talking about, or educational. but you're leaving a part of history behind every time that you write something. Like, I was not necessarily trying to write this book in that era per se. I was just led there. And then I discovered so much. I discovered, or I was able to uncover all the things that have led us to where we are now, that I didn't even know. So I was on a learning curve as well when I was writing this book, which amazed me because I got to learn as I was also writing. So writing can transform your life.
Mm. That's wonderful. I've heard other writers say that writing, in the process of writing, sometimes you discover yourself.
Yes.
You're writing these characters, but you discover who you are in
Yes.
in that process.
I can say that for you. I
Mm.
definitely found that most of the book had a lot of me, because it's only when you see it at the end you're like, okay, there's some of me in Selma, there's some of me in Fidelia, there's some of me in this character, there's some of me in the art, there's some of me in the food, there's some of me in how I've described the food and the places and things like that. So there's a lot of myself and the things that I love and the things that I would do. And I can tell that, okay, that is a me thing right there.
Definitely. The way that Fidelia got into the manor, not to ruin the
Yes.
book for everyone, go get the book and read it. When she gets into the manor for the first time, the way what
Yes.
she sees, I'm like, that's Lepang's eyes. This is
Yes.
Lepang's scene.
Yes. That is me. And you know how much I love property and housing,
Yeah.
houses, interiors, and
Yes.
art.
Yeah.
So that was definitely me describing, that manner and what it
Yes.
looked like
Yes.
and the wealth in it. Because it's also you have to be very, I had to be very kind of open with how I was using the words and and explaining what things looked like. So just explaining that there's a gold frame and you have to kind of explain what it looks like, and the things that I love to see, is what I put in that book.
And it definitely connects with the author, because I read that, I'm thinking that's what I would see when I got into a house like that. Those are the things that I would look at, the things that I would notice. So it kind of does really connect you with the person who's reading, and the characters,
Yes.
and everything else.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Yeah. Okay. So then, when how do you then get into the writing process? How do you get the ideas? I mean, you talked about the books just, coming to you basically.
Yeah.
So how and where do you get the ideas to write? And then
Mm.
how do you transform that idea from just being a thought into something that is 200, 300, 400 pages, or whatever the length of the book is, you know?
Mm. Well, I started writing this book in 2019. It was something that I just felt like, it just came to me. Where you see something, you're like, wildflower season, and you're trying to explore what it could mean. And, as I said, I really believe in divine connections. I believe that everything can be divinely appointed for you to do at a certain time. I do somehow tend to feel like, I published this book very prematurely. I think I could have done it like a year or two later, because I feel like there was so much more that I could have said and expressed through just the context of the book. And when you write, you can't be writing too emotionally. You have to be. There's areas where you really have to, yes, express your emotions and how you feel, but there's areas where you realize that somebody's going to be reading the book. So it has to be applicable to what people can understand. Otherwise, we would just use words in any way that we want to use. So putting it together for me was just thinking, what is my book about and where is it leading me to? What story do I want to tell? I knew I wanted to talk about women. That's the first thing. I knew I wanted to talk about being a Black woman. I knew I wanted to talk about young people learning something from history. I knew I wanted to talk about, progress and how we can progress in life as a collective. So it's about unity. So it's about people coming together to do something, which you don't really find today unless there's some kind of urgency or demand for it to happen. If we did it at a time of rest, we do things better. If we did it at a time where it was not urgent for us to be doing it fighting, then we do it in a better way that works for everybody. So in a time where there's not a madness happening in the world, but we can work together to achieve something, is when we can achieve it better, because by the time that the urgency shows up, it's already been achieved. So there's already something to assist, or to kind of help it blossom, or help something, so I think that it's important to always think about, when you're writing, to always think about what you want to express, the person who's reading, what do I want them to say at the end of this. So it's a book about unity, it's a book about divine connections, it's a book about learning from the past, and it's a book about, yeah, it's a book about being able to connect with other people. That's really what wildflower season is, and it's a season of blossoming. How do we blossom? How do we become better? How do we become more beautiful? How do we become better human beings through all of these things that I've just highlighted? The unity in connections with people, the learning from the past is very important, or learning from history. This is what makes us who we are today, to know where we're going and how to navigate.
Mm. That's
Yeah.
that's really powerful. That's
Mm.
really powerful. Um, yeah. I think that you talk about finding those collaborations during moments of rest. You
Yes.
know, and history shows us that there are most leaders in the world kind of are reactive,
Mm.
take from even families,
Yes.
or small organizations, large organizations, people tend to be reactive. It
Mm.
takes a certain kind of leader who has a vision like yours to realize that we need to work on something before there's an
Yes.
explosion. That we need to work. We need to be proactive, not
Proactive.
reactive.
That's
You
it.
know, and that's really great. I pray that we have more people who see that way, and
Yeah.
maybe when you keep, I was gonna say, because you're saying you need to edit, and my husband says second edition loading. Maybe it's the next novel,
Yeah.
maybe it's the next book. Maybe it doesn't have to be a revision.
So,
It can be a next book, that because there's sequels and prequels and
yes.
all manner of books, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and if it's something that, like you're saying, that kind of leadership that we need today in the world is
Mm.
something that is, the book expresses. We really need more people who think that way, who are visionary in that way.
Yes.
So then during the writing process, because there's all kinds of things to that. I mean, I've experienced this when I was writing my dissertation. You write for a specific audience or not,
Yes.
whatever the target audience is. Um, I've read that sometimes, many people are stopped in their tracks from writing because they imagine this whole panel of critics that are going to tear their book apart. So
Hmm.
how do you, in the writing process, get out of
Mm.
your head to really just let the book come?
Yeah. Well, I think that it's almost like with everything else, when you start something, you know that you have to finish it, right? So, what was most difficult is that nobody had really read my writing before. Like, only very, very few people had ever really read anything I had written. And only those people knew that I could write, unless I was writing corporately for work or whatever it is. So yes, people know that I can write, but creatively I have not expressed myself like this. So I had to break that mold in my own mind. I had to decide to just be bold and say, I yes, people are going to judge it, but it could be good judgment. And so who am I to stop myself from really trying to express myself, or really trying to make this story what it's supposed to be, because I'm so scared of the outcome. You know, every single outcome is scary. Every single outcome is scary. It doesn't matter what it is that you're doing, whether you're writing, whether you're painting. I mean, I've had all, in terms of creativity, I'm always concerned about the outcome. But when you learn to allow that kind of, I won't even call it fear. I'd say that it's a certain, you're opening yourself up for people to read into you. And once you learn that it's okay for that to happen, because you want to get this product out, you want to get this book out, you want to have this message out, then you realize that it's part of the process. So the fear is not necessarily a fear. It is more like, just thinking, um, there are times where you're thinking, I wonder what this expresses. I wonder what somebody else's mind thinks when they're going to read something like this. But don't let that make you change what it is. Just accept it for what it is, and just kind of keep it flowing and keep it moving. You're going to get, there'll be times where you feel stuck, and there'll be times where you feel exhausted, because writing is so, I mean, by the time you're done with the book, you don't want to see it. And that's how I felt. I was like, okay, the book is out, but I am so tired. I don't want to deal with this right now. You get so consumed. You get so consumed by the book, by the writing, by the time that you're putting in writing. And that's why I said preparation is such an important thing. Because if I had told myself, okay, I will do this for a year and write one page every single year. I've said this to somebody before, that you will have 365 pages of a book, right? But if you're trying to sit down in a 2-3 month block and write a book in that time, that is going to take away a lot. It takes time from you. It takes time that from you, from the things that you're used to doing. So you're out of your comfort zone. It's very mentally draining. It's very emotionally draining. It's very spiritually draining. So you also need to find that time to center yourself, and to just say, okay, I'm taking a break from this. I'm going to do this for a couple of hours and read and listen to music, be with my family. I'm going to cook. I'm going to pray. You need the stability. Otherwise you just get depressed. And I was finding myself sometimes, and I had to stop myself during those moments and say, okay, stop with this, and just get back to who you are. Because at the end of the day, this book needs you. It needs you to be whole. It needs you to feel good about yourself. It needs you to feel energetic. You need to go, by the time you're done with this, you need to at least have yourself. So don't lose yourself in the process of writing. You need to talk to people. You need to ask questions. You need to write a lot of things down, that if you don't know something, just write it down and ask somebody. Just do your research, talk to somebody, have a conversation with other people around you that may have the answer to what you're trying to unlock while you're writing. So writing, you won't write alone. There's definitely people that you can talk to around you, family, friends, and so forth, where you are not getting ideas, but you're getting refreshment, so that you're not stuck and consumed by the writing process. Yeah.
Okay. And that kind of actually answers part of our next question. But the thing that I picked, one of the things that I picked is that by the time you completed the book, you were so tired.
I was tired.
I've heard the author Toni Morrison, God rest her soul,
Mm.
say that when every time she completed writing a book, she would go literally into a depression because
Yes.
she would be separate, like she's mourning the loss of characters because she's been
Yeah.
they've been part of her life so much
Yeah.
that when she stops, it's like death,
And
you
emptiness.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt that way. I mean, Toni Morrison is actually like one of my favorite authors. I don't know how many times I read Beloved when I was very, very, very young. I was probably like 14 or so, 15, I don't know. But you can imagine at that age reading something so heavy, you understand that being an author is very heavy emotionally, like I said. I was feeling, I was exhausted because I had put so much into these characters. And then now I'm done with it, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know what to do with myself, and I feel, yeah, like you, it's an empty, there's a level of emptiness that you go through. It's a difficult like writing is very, very, very hard, Bujosi. It's hard, but when you're done with it, there's that emptiness that you encounter because you've been inside that book, and then when you get out, there's an emptiness for that few weeks or whatever it is. I went through it for a couple of months. But another thing that I wanted to say, you would understand this concept maybe from something like fasting, which I go through a lot sometimes. You go through a long-term fast, maybe like, whether it's 7 or 10 days or 21 days, because you've been so consumed by this fast and this thing that you've been in. The next day when you're out of your fast, you feel like you feel a little bit empty. It's not you don't feel refreshed, and most people will be like, "Oh, I feel great after my fast." I was like, were you fasting spiritually or just because you feel like you've been spending all that time and so forth in this, right? And then the day that you get out of it, there's just this feeling that you get, and you can't explain it to anybody. You can't explain to anybody because you've been pouring out so much of yourself.
Yeah, I can certainly relate when I was writing my dissertation. Yeah, I mean, we were not required to submit a physical copy. We just submitted
Yes.
an electronic copy. But I was going to print it. I'm going to print it for myself and just have a physical copy on my bookshelf. But for many months, I think for me, the feeling that, yes, there was that feeling of emptiness,
Yes.
but it was, it was incredible for me. It was like, it's done.
Mm.
I can't believe it's done. I
Yeah.
would wake up in the morning and go, oh, I have to go and sit down and write. And remember, no, it's done.
Yes.
It's like, like I would literally have nightmares, like, oh gosh, I gotta go and write and finish it. But I would wake up and think, no, it's done. It's gone.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah.
And like you, for the longest time, I just didn't even want to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the writing process is really a transformative process. Like I always tell people, just having done a PhD is like, it's like living a completely different life. And I believe
Yeah.
it's like writing a book. It's like you're
Yeah.
immersed in this alternative life for
Yeah.
years sometimes, and then you come out and you're supposed to live like you again.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah,
But there's
yeah,
always something that drives you to it.
yeah.
Um,
That's right. That's
you have, if you don't write, if you know you're supposed to be writing, and if you don't write, it's also a worse consequence than the emptiness you feel after writing the book. So if you're not right, if you know you should be writing and you're not doing it, you are feeling the weight of not doing what you're supposed to be doing as well.
That's right. That's right. I mean, my husband can attest. I've always said, I need to write this book. I need to write this book. It's always with you. It's like a monkey
Yes.
on your back.
Yes. You
You
need to do
you
it.
know you just sit down and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you already said it's challenging. Now let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about the book itself, the product that you're working on. Is
Yes.
there? I think we talked a little bit before the show about publishers and all that. Is there a standard way of writing a book? Like, is there a format that you have to follow? That if you don't follow, your book is not going to be like a complete book. Is there anything like that, or what do you do for that?
Yeah, I think you just need to pick up books and read them, because I think because I've been reading novels for a long time, and the type of book Wildflower Season is the type of books I had always read, because I was more interested in history. I was more interested um in culture. I was interested in art. I was interested in food and the kind of things that I've put in there. But from a historical point of view, like where we come from, like I'm writing as a Black woman. So I'm writing about historically Black things, okay? That things that I can connect to it, things that you can connect to it, things that other Black women or men would be able to connect with, because that's what I know. But that's what I've also read in the books that I've been reading. Like I said, I've read a lot of I've read a lot of black authors, I'd say, but a lot of them have a train of thinking and a train of communicating, and that train always reflects back to our culture, who we are, kind of historically. Those things are always in the book, and I mean, the first book, the second book, and the third book, I can relate to, how I was writing and formatting the book. Was the first and the second book. I'd say okay, so I wrote my Wildflower Season, and then I wrote two books at the same time. So I wrote a devotional and I was writing a novel at the same time. The devotional came out first, and then the novel came out a couple of weeks later. But I definitely enjoyed the writing process of my second novel because I knew what to do then. I had now gone through the process of doing my first book, but the second book was easier. The story was more is a little bit different. Well, I won't say a little bit, it's very, very different, but it still kind of taps into the ideals of being collective in how we do things, because I definitely believe that, in unity, I preach unity, I preach relationships and unity and doing things collectively, because I mean, the reason why there's millions of us on the earth is because there's supposed to be something collective happening. Otherwise, there'd just be me, or there'd just be you, right? Relationship is central to who we are as people. So I love writing about relationships. I love writing about people. I love writing about culture. And those ideas are also in my second book, but it was just a more youthful book, but it was easier to write. So formatting my second book was a lot easier because I knew how I was going to do it. I knew how I was going to tell the story. And you need to just outline it. Like when you have your book idea, make sure you have a plan. Just sit and say, this may not be the final plan, but at least I've got an outline. I've got an outline. This is how I want to start, and this is how I want to finish. And in between, this is what I want to see. So if you can sit down and brainstorm and outline it for yourself, whether you're writing something, whether you're writing, an autobiography, whether you're writing about something that you know about or someone that you know about, whether you're writing, it doesn't matter what it is that you're writing, but you need to be able to just say, this is what the story I want from the story when I'm done with it. But this is how I plan to execute it as I go along. It's going to change as you write. It's a lot of things are going to happen in between. You're going to keep changing your chapters, but the basis of it will be there by the time that you're done. Yeah.
That's wonderful, and that's really informative. To know that begin with. It's pretty much like life, right? If
Yes.
you have a plan, a vision, 20, 30 years, 50 years,
Yes.
it's not going to be exactly that. You navigate, change as you need to.
That's it.
And you talk about writing, black women writing for black women, as Toni Morrison also
Toni
has
Morrison.
said. The thing that I notice in books sometimes, you'll be reading a book. I've picked up books that are written by, maybe white authors, for instance, right? And you get to a part of a book that says that describes a black character. So in my mind at that point, it's like, oh, okay, so the whole entire book was not really written about or for me, because now I feel like, well, that describes me at this point. So does that mean that the whole book, from the beginning to until here, is not for me? And so that's the sense I got from your book as well. From the minute I read it, I felt like this book is written about me.
Yeah.
So
Because you can relate to it.
yes, I can relate to it.
Yeah.
And I can follow your writing, and I can follow your thought pattern, and feel like and not feel like, oh, this is strange. That's not strange in a bad sense, but like I don't understand that. That's something I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's that's the purpose of books anyway, to read to understand. But it's also great to feel that you connect to a book, which is what I felt when I was reading the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So make a plan and keep writing.
It's not my book was there's areas of it which I kind of I don't even think purposely. I think it's just part of who I am, like the wildflowers and what happened just at the beginning with John Alfred, in terms of how these angels, for me it's angels that appear and tell him a story. Some people may see it differently, but for me, from my context, that's how I see it. There's areas of the book which is a little bit dreamy, but then that dream connects to reality because part of our life is also supernatural. Whether or not we want to accept it or not, but our lives are both physical and supernatural at the same time. So that's who I am. That's the expression I was putting out in my book, and this is the expression that I put out in all my books. So both my novels have this kind of divine but physical thing to it happening at the same time.
So it's an important thing to put yourself in a book. In other words,
Yes.
like the book has to be,
Yeah.
yeah, like through you. Like someone can tell that this is.
I think otherwise it would be empty.
Mm.
I think everybody, there's no person who doesn't have emotions in this world. So the reality is that whether you like it or not, there's going to be a huge part of you in a book because you are the author, you are the creator. The creativity is the spirit that is in you, it's coming out. So there's no way you can avoid that. It's definitely going to have a part of you in it.
Yes, they say that art is always autobiographical. That
Yes.
like every piece of art is always telling a story about the person who created
Yes.
it, and
Definitely.
that's for sure the way we are with God. He made
Yeah.
us in His likeness, right? Okay, so now let's say you have your plan and you followed your plan, you zigzagged here and back, and you have your manuscript. So where does someone go to? How do you find a publisher that publishes your book without you wanting? For instance, if you have like a traditional publisher, for instance, the editor might want things changed here and there. And I hear editors in that defense say, no, we don't want to change books. We just want to make your book more of what it is. But how do you find a publisher and then someone who can publish your where do you start?
Okay. Well, this book, with my first novel, let me say, because I've written other books before, okay, but they were not novels. They were more of lifestyle books. So I've written cookbooks before that I had tried to get published by a publisher. And my books got rejected and rejected and rejected and rejected and rejected. And there came a point where obviously self-publishing allows you to then have control. And self-publishing has always existed. There's a lot of independent publishers, people who just, putting your mark or your imprint on the book is you saying this is my book done by myself. So people have done it. It's just that we don't know that. You may have read a book that you didn't even know was an independent book by an author who didn't go the generic um, publishing route, but definitely it's always existed. It just exists now in a bigger and more commercial way through publishers that we can use like Amazon or Ingram. There's all these organizations that actually allow you to be self-published and just be able to print and distribute through them. So I had decided that I wasn't going to go to a publisher and try and explain my story all over again. I think it had drained me before. And I realized that it's something that I can do in the future because now I've got my books and now I know where I want to take my books. So it's easier to communicate with a publisher because some publishers also pick up independent books. So if I wanted to go in that route, it would be a process that I begin from the almost like from the beginning, but at least I've already got my book that exists, right? I can take it to a publisher, and if they feel that okay, this is something that we would like as a bigger publisher to promote in this way, so that there's whatever it is that I want to do out of that book, because there's benefits to self-publishing and there's also benefits to giving away your publishing rights to somebody else. So there's a lot of things that you need to consider when you're thinking about publishing, because when you're self-published, you literally control 100% of the process. It is your book. You can do whatever you want with it. When you don't own the publishing rights, that's a different ball game. You're just the author. You just get your royalties as an author, but that's really just about it. And yes, your book may become something amazingly huge and so forth, but the control aspect of it can be sometimes limited depending on the relationship that you have with your publisher. So one, you need to do your research, find out if publishing with bigger publishers is for you and for the type of book that you're writing, and also find out if you would want to be responsible for growing your book in the first place. But if you feel you want to publish your book and you don't have access to the publishers, just go ahead and go the self-publishing route and just keep building on the book and the content and the marketing and so forth. And I think sooner or later it catches up and something will come out of it. So just do the research, find out which publishers are publishing in your country or in whatever country that you feel you want to publish your book in, and then start either approaching them or so forth. I mean, the publishers get manuscript, like thousands of manuscripts every single day. And it depends on how long you're willing to wait and the kind of relationship that you would have with a publishing agent and so forth. You can even work with a publicist if you want to go that route. So what's your budget like? And how much time do you want to spend investing in some of the avenues? You need to consider the time and the finances.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, how affordable is it for just an average person? Like, how affordable is publishing
It's
and
not
marketing?
free. It's not free. I mean, you invest, firstly, it's your time, right? Secondly, you invest in the time that you spend, trying to, doing certain administrative things like registrations and so forth. It depends which kind of an online. If you're doing self-publishing, you're considering doing Amazon, which is it's free, yes, but it also takes you investing in certain things, always being online and so forth. So you have to just know that you have to be online. You have to have the tools that allow you to do certain things. But there's also the cost for a lot of people is going to be where it comes to the typesetting and the design of the book. So I was lucky, I'm a designer, so I was able to do my book myself from right from every like literally everything. So I did not even work with anybody else. I was just able to work by myself on the design and the typesetting and so forth. It's stuff that at least I knew how to do. Some in terms of this particular project, um, with Wildflower Season, I was learning about typesetting for such a big project. I've done typesetting for smaller things like, profiles or annual reports and corporate when I was doing corporate communications. But here I'm working on like a book that has almost 400 pages, and you learn as you go along. So I had to teach myself part of that. But when it comes to design software, I'm a quick learner. So I learned very easy. I was okay, I can do this, and I was able to and then you just get better as you go along. So my first book, it was okay, in terms of the typesetting and how I did everything, and I've been, improving it gradually because, as I said, it's self-published as well. It's online, so people can, I can make whatever amends or changes that I want to make to it. But there's been changes to that. But the second book, third book, was smooth because I was like almost an expert now, and now I know how to do this typesetting. Now I know what it takes to design the covers of my books, and so forth. So it was easier to navigate. But if you're not a designer, um, you would have to invest in that aspect. You would have to invest in that aspect of talking to someone who is a professional in terms of doing your typesetting and designing your covers and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, I think like you're saying that it's, self-publishing has always been there, but then through the years too, it has gotten better because there are services, like you're saying, that help writers, independent writers, to put together and publish their books or edit them. For instance, freelance services like Fiverr, for instance, I know
Yes,
when I wrote my little book, I got someone to design a cover for me, and it
that's
wasn't
great.
that expensive, right? Even the editing, but I mean, you have to be careful with that. But these things can be outsourced and, from a
Yes.
freelancer, not for an exorbitant amount, which you would have to pay, for instance, like for
Yeah.
a traditional publisher.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then finally, let's talk about the marketing. Like, how do you, if you're an independent writer, for instance, how do you do that part? How do you market your book?
Yeah. Well, I wrote both of them during lockdown. Well, both novels during like a lockdown period. So you can imagine, it's during COVID. There's not much movement, and the best form of marketing a book is being physically present. So doing book tours, going, you need to move around. You need to be in places where you're actually talking about your book and so forth to actually get that interest and also keep the conversation of your book and the content of the book going. So I wrote my books during a time where it was very difficult to move, but I also had to learn that my market is not, um, you know, I find that the readership level is not sophisticated, and I had to accept that. I had to accept that and say this is part of the process, and at some point I'll get to travel and be able to market and promote my book in different countries and so forth, but it's work in progress. So it's very important if you're on Amazon, just spend a lot of time on Amazon, because on Amazon, you're going to have to be learning ways of actually marketing your book and making it relevant to people who may be searching for a book in your genre. So that's very important. You need to learn about that medium that you've used. If you are in Botswana, for instance, or South Africa, whatever, South Africa, it's easier to be able to get your book selling online through different distributors that sell online. In Botswana, it's coming up, but I don't think where books are concerned, people are very familiar with it. So the market would be much smaller. So you need to really investigate, how do I get this book out there, the channels for distribution, how do I make it easy and accessible? And obviously that's how you market your book. If it's on Amazon, you also you can use that vehicle as much as you want. If it's on, so think about the platforms that forms part of your marketing. And then get on social media, talk about your books, get invited to things like what I'm doing now. This is good for my book, but it's absolutely amazing for me. And I don't have copies because I was traveling, and the books that I had with me were for my friends. They were not for me. And we couldn't fill up. I mean, I would have loved to fill up a suitcase with my books and come with them, but I was like, when I get a little bit more settled, I'll be able just to order some and then do some sessions with different people. But it's great to know that you have the ability to move. If you can just get up and go and start talking to people, go to sessions where you know that you're relevant, where you know that you're accepted, where you know that it is for you. Like, don't just also, I was working against the grain for a long time when it comes to my books, and I realized that that was part of my what I was unhappy about. I was so miserable at some point concerning my books because I was in an environment that is not necessarily really interested. I find that depending on where you're from, and this is another thing about mindset, the mindset of our communities needs to kind of transform a lot, Bojosi, because, people, I've read a lot of local authors from Botswana, from South Africa, from Zimbabwe. I read a lot. So I've read books from all over the world, from Brazil, and I love, and as I said, I love historically or Black authors. So I read Cuban authors, I read Brazilian authors, Black authors. So for me, I realized that if I don't get out of my comfort zone and also learn to navigate around my own community, because somebody in my country has something to say that's going to teach me something. But people are more interested in the books that are taken over by media. So they'll go for books that are that are popular, or that are, that are written by this person and that person, but you will find that people around you will not speak about your book, but they will speak about a book by Will Smith, they will speak about a book by whoever, they will speak, but you're with them there, they won't talk about your book. They'll be very quick to market somebody's book that they that they don't know, they've never met, and they may never meet ever, but and that's okay. I mean, I think that everybody is free to do whatever it is that they want. But part of the unity, part of the working within our communities, part of being in a community is also learning how to impact the people around you. So I find that marketing is about having conversations, right? In your community, have the conversations with the people around you that allow you to get to where you want to be with your book. That's marketing. That is active. That's a day to day to day conversation. But focus a lot on where you want to go futuristically. Like, where do I want to see my book in a few years, or a few months, or a year from now? And then take those steps, network with those people in those areas, and once you're able to go on a book tour, and promote your book, like this is now in-person promotion, it makes life a lot easier. These people are already familiar with you by the time that you get there.
That's wonderful. They say that family and friends won't celebrate you until strangers do.
I believe that.
Yeah, and then the Bible says
I
the
can
prophet has
attest to
no
that.
honor in their own home.
Yeah.
So until people see that, oh, she's actually celebrated elsewhere,
Yeah.
that's when they jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
When it's already sailed, and they're like, well, we knew you were always going to do it.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not
You
how it
didn't.
works.
But it's
That's
okay.
not.
I forgive you. It's
That's
okay.
right. I love you anyway. Certainly, look, when that's part of this, doing this session was that, I mean, I don't, not that you need the marketing or anything. I believe that we would be able to still, say, hey, Lepang has written this great book. Get a book, get a copy, and read it. Not that, a friend and I talked about this one time, that people would say, let's support so and so. No, that's we're reading the book because it's a way to read.
Yes.
We're not saying let's support Lepang because,
Yes.
well, we're just supporting. No, we're reading the book because it's worthy to be read.
Yeah.
So that's really wonderful. I think we've come to the end of our program here. So what's next for Lepang? What are you working on? And I know that people know you, of course, but you're always working on so many things. You're so creative in so many areas. So what's next for you?
I think I will keep writing at some point. I definitely want to promote my books and see what avenues are available for my books, because I started something and I feel like it's something good, and it's something I feel is worthy of more. So I'm giving myself that opportunity to explore more when it comes to my books. And in terms of my art as well, like I've been an artist for many years, but I took a break from it. I think I took a break from it because I was just consumed. Sometimes you are in an environment for too long, and that environment drains you and drains your creativity, drains your passion for something. And I think now I feel like I can go out and start, exploring that my art a lot more. It's something that's out there. A lot of people, some people know me as an artist, some people know me as an author, a lot of people know me as a designer. But I'm a business person, but I could say I'm a creative entrepreneur. So creativity is really unlimited, but it takes being in the right environment. It takes talking to the right people. It takes having the right people around you who you're able, to talk to, and share ideas and be open with, and find your footing and find where you're going to go. I think that whatever it is you start is is bound to be successful if you stick with it long enough. For some people, it happens immediately. That's great. For some people, it takes a year. Some people, it takes 5 years. Some people, it takes 20 years. Everybody's story is different, but you're living life. And don't stop living. I don't stop living. I just keep trying to move on, and I try to do what I know in that moment is going to be good for me, not just to survive, but to also thrive. Like, this is about thriving, right? So I want to be successful, but I'm taking strides to make that happen for myself. And I think that it may take time sometimes, but I'm not throwing in the towel. I'm not giving up on my creativity. I'm not giving up on who I know I can be. So if you have that mindset, if you have the mindset of saying, I am going to keep doing this until it gets to the point where I wanted to get to, whatever happens in the interim or around you or whatever it is you should not take it to heart. You just keep going. You just keep pushing through until you see your work out there. And I think that's what it is for me. I'm not working on anything I would say new. I'm just developing what I've already had, making it better, making it more, making it bigger, spreading it out a little bit more. So I'm ready for that now.
Wonderful. So definitely, if you're having a book club for Wildflower Season, call me because I'm going to finish it. So if you have that, call me. I'll be part of that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for that. Yeah, we all really just like you're saying, just keep going.
Keep
Keep
going,
working,
keep writing,
keep going.
exploring, keep creating. Just do it.
Right. Mm.
Just do it. Just do it, and you'll see something manifest at the time that it's supposed to, in the way that it's supposed to. You just have to just keep having the faith. That's it.
That's right. And they say some overnight successes take 10 years, some take 20 years.
Yes.
Sometimes we see people like they came from nowhere. No, but they've been working in the background.
That's it.
They've been working for years, and then it looks like overnight they just popped up from nowhere.
That's it.
Well, Lepang, thank you so much.
Thank
Do you have
you.
any final words that you want
Well,
to?
my final word is for people to just, if they want to write, then that's right. Don't let anything hinder you. If you've got a paper and a pen and a laptop and a tablet, whatever it is, start writing. Just start putting it out there that this is what I want to do, this is how I want to achieve, and then give yourself a a timeline, or to do it, to achieve that, and it can be done.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Lepang, for
Thank
being a
you.
guest on Thrivers today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Bojosi. I appreciate it.
All right.
All right.
Bye. Bye, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.